Show with Jacquie Wayans. Inspiration through word and song for you.
Welcome to Don't Give Up and Win. I'm your host, Jacquie Wayans, and it is a pleasure to be back with you another week. And because you are here watching, that means you did not give up either. And in my book, that makes you a winner. Like my guest today, Carolyn Harrison, our lives coincide in many ways. She grew up as a young girl with many dreams about her future and hopes and thoughts of what she would be and become, only to get to that crossroads in life where things could have been dashed. But she rebuilt her life, and now she's helping to rebuild the lives of others. Carolyn, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jackie. Glad to be here.
It is a pleasure to have you. Many of you may have seen the PSAs for Young Life during our show, and I am actually the board chair for Young Life Bronx, and so this is a mission that is near and dear to my heart, but so are you. So I definitely want to have your story and have you on. So listen, Carolyn, talk to me about the little girl, the young preteeny girl who had hopes and dreams for her future, and what she thought of for herself on the inside, and also what she was dealing with on the outside.
Well, you know, the dreams didn't come together quickly. My life started in a very unfortunate way. My mother was a teen mom, and I wasn't always sure that I was supposed to be here even. And so my maternal grandmother raised me, and it got me involved in the church at a very early age, and so the church became the locus of where my dreams did begin to come together. Okay. I was a student at Performing Arts High School in Philadelphia, and had teachers who surrounded me, who helped me to begin to dream broadly. In fact, it was a teacher who helped me take my first plane trip out of Philadelphia, where I grew up, to California. And while I was there for a program, I began to have a large vision for my life, a vision of possibility for future travel, worldwide travel, performance on multiple stages. But, you know, of course, I was a teenager.
Yes.
And was distracted by many things.
Yes.
Mostly boys.
Mostly boys, of course.
Often. However, I will say that most of my best friends during my teen years were guys, were boys.
Yeah, that was the same with me, too. My very best friend during high school was a guy.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so much of what I learned about how to take risks and to trust the possibilities came through those friendships with some of my guy friends. And I would say the first inkling of a broad territory for my life came when I was admitted to the governor's school, the Pennsylvania Governor's School. I was a theater arts scholar. I auditioned for 2 years in a row. The second year I got in, my theater teacher, one of three, gave me my first suitcase, drove me to Bucknell University, which was the location of this camp, and I took the stage in more ways than one. That was in 1983.
Yes, of course. We don't have to tell our age, but I'm in that same category as you are.
It feels like it was yesterday.
I want to slow down for a minute because, you know, you're hitting on a lot of important things that as we're growing up, there usually is that disconnect between what we're feeling on the inside and what's happening in the outside world. And so one of the running themes of this show has been the importance of mentors, the importance of adults in your life that can speak into you, that can help guide you in the right direction, especially when the voice that you have on the inside is not the most positive voice. So you had the church as your foundation, and it was a place where you could blossom and you can grow. And so in the midst of all the boy craziness, it kind of held you down so you didn't go too far. College happens, you go on to have a wonderful career. You did some work in theater, I know.
I did. I spent 4 years in undergrad doing theater, and then freelanced for a number of years as a performer, as a director. then completed my first graduate degree in theater, and all the while I would freelance at schools or community centers, offering my services.
And I know it's a work that you really loved and you were passionate about.
Yeah.
And like myself, one of the things that I thought as I was pursuing the arts myself, one of my internal dreams, though, was to find someone to spend my life with, to love and be loved. And that first marriage for me did not pan out. And I know you had a similar story. You got married, you started a beautiful family.
Yeah, I
And
met
what
my former husband during my first graduate degree program. And we have 3 beautiful children, 2 daughters and a son.
Just like me.
Yeah, both. The oldest daughter, Antonia, is a college graduate.
Awesome.
Samantha graduates in May, and Caleb has just begun his college career. So those 3 are gifts of what turned out to be a really unfortunate set of circumstances. My former husband traveled, he's a musician, and the constant movement undermined, it just really caused the foundation of that relationship to be weakened. But I'm grateful that the result of that relationship are these 3 wonderful young adults who give me so much hope for our future generation. They're millennials.
Yes.
You know, and you hear so many hard things about millennials, but there is hope.
There is hope. There is hope after the storm. So when we come back, we're going to talk with Carolyn about how she made it through that crisis time, because I know many of us have been in that place, and not just women. There's a lot of men out there who are holding it down and raising their families independently. So we're going to talk about that crossroads, how she didn't give up to become who she is today when we come back.
Young Life is a tool that the Lord has used over the past 75 years to introduce adolescents to Jesus Christ and to help them grow in their faith.
They need someone to step into their life and walk alongside of them. And we do that by showing up. We do that by loving them where they are.
Every kid has a right to hear the gospel of Jesus Christ and make their own decision about it.
In a city as diverse as New York, we want to make sure our efforts are reaching every type of kid.
We are committed to making sure we stay the course because there is always room for more.
And we're back with Carolyn Harrison. And, you know, right before our break, you were sharing about your marriage, you know, falling apart. Many of us in this country have experienced that. And it can be devastating. I know for me, it took many years before I found my footing again. So share with us about that position of brokenness, that moment when you realize you invested all this time and energy, but it's not there anymore.
So I was married for 15 years in my former marriage, and I met my former husband when I was a very young woman, and I was investing. I was really desperate. I was a much different woman than I am today, hoping that this marriage would complete me.
Right.
But we know that
Yes.
half people coming together don't make
Whole people.
Whole people.
Right. Yeah.
And so I was just a little misdirected about why. I had come into this union, and there were many disappointments. I had some expectations that I had not managed, my own expectations. And it was just too much weight for 2 young people to bring into a relationship. And unfortunately, it couldn't be sustained, and the relationship dissolved. But at the point when I realized that it would not last, it was devastating to me. I was devastated.
Right.
Because we had these 3 young children who didn't ask to be here.
Right.
And I just I didn't know how I would be able to sustain the life I imagined for them.
Right.
Without their father.
And that is not just financial. You're talking about the emotional support,
360 degrees.
Yes.
So it was very, very difficult. And then with all of the other pieces that come with divorce that you can't anticipate unless you're going through it, the holidays and the sharing of home spaces and just
it becomes more lonely. It becomes harder.
It feels like a world has been ripped apart.
Right. So what was a moment that you can almost remember as a low, but at the same time it was that don't give up moment where you realize, you know what, I can't stay in this space?
It's very interesting. There were two moments. The first moment, I think, was the first holiday that the children spent with their father. He lived out of state. And I was working full time. I was chairing a theater program at the time. So it was winter holiday, and I was on the couch waiting for their father to pick them up. He arrived, and they left, and everything in me just collapsed. I came down with the flu. The next morning, I couldn't lift my head off the couch.
Right. Okay.
It was really, really, it was sort of the dark night of the soul.
Right.
There was a glimmer of light, though, on that day. We lived in a community that was very well connected, so much support. A good friend and her husband and children came to my door.
Yes.
They had baked hot cinnamon rolls for me and said, we knew that the kids would be spending the holiday with their father, and we just wanted you to know we were thinking of you. They were angels to me that day. It was as if my higher power said, I see you.
Yes.
I still have good plans for your life.
Yes.
And that was the second moment. That was a turnaround moment for me. When I realized the plans I imagined were not turning out the way I anticipated.
Yes.
But there were other plans that would be just as good for me.
All right. So, I'm getting a little teary because I can relate so much to what you're saying. And people who don't do those little things and they think they're the little things, they could be the thing that saves a life, literally. So when those moments happen, it gives you enough clarity to start to begin to think, okay, how do I rebuild? What are some of the things you did to move forward, to refocus? I know you were very brave and you moved to New York City.
Well, prior to moving to New York City, there were 3 years in the same city before New York came into the picture.
So what did you do?
I went back to graduate school.
Okay.
It was something I always wanted to do, and I did it. I went forward. I wanted to have a graduate level degree in directing, which is my forte.
Nice.
So I enrolled.
I didn't know that. I might have some use for you more beyond. Okay.
Yes.
Right.
It was a university without walls, so I was the only student in all my classes. I wrote the curriculum for the degree.
Wow.
I found professors in Cincinnati, where I lived at the University of Cincinnati. My neighbor, who was a leading performer, facilitator, agreed to be my chair for that program. And it's so interesting. One of the things I lost during that period of darkness was my laughter. I had made a decision that I would not laugh or cry.
Okay, the numbness, yes.
I had steeled myself against really hard emotions.
Yes.
And I put them away. One of the requirements for my degree was that I learn to find my voice through my laughter and my tears. Okay. And the woman who was my partner, Cheryl Couch, I'll never forget her. She helped me locate those emotions, and she helped me to learn how to be human again.
Oh, wow. I love that terminology. It is very true that you can get to a place where you're crying every day, multiple times a day. And so there comes a place where you say, I am just not going to cry anymore. But in that numbness, you also numb yourself from being able to laugh, being able to feel, to have that joy. So I very much know what Carolyn Harrison is sharing. But I love the fact she was able to take that step to rebuild her life. For me, I went back to Columbia University to get my BA, which I didn't do the first time. So, you know, continuing to further yourself is one of the ways that you can start to move forward. When we come back, we're going to hear where she is today and all the wonderful blessings that the Lord has brought to her and how she's able to pass those blessings on to others.
Young Life is a tool that the Lord has used over the past 75 years to introduce adolescents to Jesus Christ and to help them grow in their faith.
They need someone to step into their life and walk alongside of them. And we do that by showing up. We do that by loving them where they are.
Every kid has a right to hear the gospel of Jesus Christ and make their own decision about it.
In a city as diverse as New York, we want to make sure our efforts are reaching every type of kid.
We are committed to making sure we stay the course because there is always room for more.
What you just saw was a clip of the work that is being done by Young Life, not only in New York City, but in over 100 countries. And I love the work that Young Life is doing. But if you saw, there was Carolyn Giles in that take, and we know today she is Carolyn Harrison. So talk to us about how that transition was able to happen.
I'm so happy to. I reconnected with my current husband, Eric Harrison, in 2006 or 2007. We started an old-fashioned letter exchange and reconnected by phone. And I began to wonder what life as a married woman would be like again. And that relationship blossomed, and he asked me to marry him in 2014. And we committed our lives on that day in June. And so I'm just thrilled that the hope I talked about earlier has come to pass.
Yes, and I've seen it firsthand. You two are definitely lovebirds, and that's beautiful. And that's what brought you to New York City.
Yes, while we were reconnecting and dating, I interviewed for a theater position at the Berkeley Carroll School. They hired me to chair their theater program. My children went to that school, and the girls graduated from there.
Now's time for the Don't Give Up and Win takeaway moment.
Our guest today was able to share with us the highs and the lows of her life, and I could really equate and just associate with her lows. There is something to be said about holidays and having your kids walk out the door to spend time with the other side of the family. And of course we want that. We want to bolster that. But if we're not whole in ourselves, then it leaves a hole inside of us. So I encourage you to take that time when your kids are away, whether they're at school, whether they're on vacation, whether they're visiting others, to rebuild yourself. That rebuilding for me started with prayer. It started with praise. It started with taking time to evaluate what was working in my life, which direction could I go into next. And the Lord carried me step by step, just like he did our guest today. And I know he's no respecter of persons. If he did that for me, he's going to be faithful and just to do the same exact thing for you. Why? Because he loves you, because he thinks you're special, because he has a plan for you that is awesome, that he thought of way before he even put you in your mother's womb. So be encouraged, don't give up, and win.
Young Life is a tool that the Lord has used over the past 75 years to introduce adolescents to Jesus Christ and to help them grow in their faith.
They need someone to step into their life and walk alongside of them. And we do that by showing up. We do that by loving them where they are.
every kid has a right to hear the gospel of Jesus Christ and make their own decision about it.
In a city as diverse as New York, we want to make sure our efforts are reaching every type of kid.
We are committed to making sure we stay the course because there is always room for more.
Now, I want to find out, how did you get introduced to Young Life? And I want to talk a bit about that work so people can really understand. Because whether you're a young person who needs that safe place, because we've talked about teen moms, we've talked about mentors, and all these things just connect right into the work of Young Life. So how did you get introduced?
It's a very funny story. One of the young girls I taught theater to went to Young Life camp when she went to a public high school at Lake Champion. She's a dear friend of ours. She's my daughter Samantha's best friend.
Oh.
And Emma came home and called and said, "You have got to find Young Life in New York. I think this is just the sort of thing you'll like doing." I did. I met a young woman named Allison Taylor who introduced me to Paul Cody and John Wagner, and the rest is history.
The rest is history.
I retired from teaching theater, a 25-year teaching career, and Young Life invited me to come on staff in 2012.
Yeah.
And it has been my joy. I get to still work with teenagers every day, from middle school to college age. I get to hang out with them on a weekly basis. I get to mentor them and connect them to programs and opportunities. I get to help them figure out the full and satisfying life that is theirs to have. I get to connect them to other adults in the community like yourself. It's a gift.
I love the fact too that the Young Life mission is about earning the right to share the gospel with young people. Because oftentimes, you know, in the church setting, we just expect the kids to come in and we just go right after them with the gospel and with the verses. But we really need to make an investment inside of them. And what Young Life does is really meets kids where they are, whether they're in Dunkin' Donuts or at the pizza shop, or you know, not being afraid of them as they're talking on the train and all that stuff.
True.
And just being able to invite them into your world. And so once again, so much of what you say line up with my own story, because I spent 15 years doing everything from Sunday school teacher to youth leader to counselor, and found that this work was really a culmination of all my experience and the best way to put it forth. Why don't you tell the people, what are the ways that they can be a part of Young Life?
There are a number of ways you can become a part of Young Life. You can become a volunteer leader, to be a weekly friend in the life of a young person. You can become a financial partner to help support the work. You can become a church partner where our staff comes and trains youth leaders already working in your church community and equips them, gives them community for creating sustainable youth programming in your church. You can
you know, there's the board committee.
The board,
right?
We need a group of adults who are committed to helping raise the resources, the financial resources for the programming. How else?
And then prayer. Prayer is always...
Absolutely, which is a part of our board committee. We have board members like Jacquie. You know, you serve as our chair of our board, but we have board members who help with finances, board members who help provide support for our volunteer leaders, board members who are adult helpers at club and serve food, board members who help connect us to other community organizations and other churches to help us brand our presence in the Bronx. So there are a number of ways, and we're always looking for adults to come and see what God is doing in New York City and in the Bronx.
Yes.
And the thing I really want to I want to sort of put a pin in the notion that we earn the right to be a part of their lives. I like to think of it as being the aroma of Christ that draws young people into involvement. Very much the way that Christ moved into the neighborhood and built community with his first disciples. We are trying to become that aroma that's irresistible to teenagers. Like you said, so that adults are no longer afraid or shying away from, but in fact, they look into the eyes of these young people who really only want to be seen, they want to be known,
Right.
they want to be valued.
Yes.
And that's what we're here to do.
I love that. They want to be seen, they want to be known, they want to be valued. That's true for every one of us. And believe me, every young person has the same dream. We're in the middle right now of, we just got finished completing a 50 at 50 campaign, but you know, you can give in terms of your wisdom, you know, your years of experience, no matter what your field, whether you know about finances, whether you know about kids, there's a place for your wisdom, your time. You know, kids just love the time that you can give to them. A lot of their parents just don't have the availability. So for you to be there to give that time means everything. And of course, if you're too busy because of your own schedule, there's always your finances. So thank you for sharing with us. It's been a blessing having you. Continue to find out more about Young Life. We will be showing their website and making that available to you. And until next week, I want you to go ahead and be your very own best hero, because the greatest hero of all said that you are worth it when he gave his life for you on the cross. I give you permission to win. Don't give up. Win.
Young Life is a tool that the Lord has used over the past 75 years to introduce adolescents to Jesus Christ and to help them grow in their faith.
They need someone to step into their life and walk alongside of them. And we do that by showing up. We do that by loving them where they are.
Every kid has a right to hear the gospel of Jesus Christ and make their own decision about it.
In a city as diverse as New York, we want to make sure our efforts are reaching every type of kid.
We are committed to making sure we stay the course, because there is always room for more.
Don't Give Up Show with Jacquie Wayans.